talk about, but are very important. So as you can see, there's a tremendous variety within this space. This space is an amazing space. It was an actual creamery, and there were many, many hours putting into making this a gallery space. That being said, what we'd like to do is next let Catherine Randall speak about her pieces which touch upon a very painful topic. So we're just going to take a minute and rearrange ourselves, and I'll walk up onto the top of the stage here. Okay?
Okay.
Great. Ready?
Ready. Okay.
So we're going to go up here and give Catherine some good attention.
Allie, do you want to come up? Obviously, I do pen and ink drawings, and these were done when my husband decided that I was too ugly and too old, and he was gone. And I had to figure out what to do with my life, and how could I take care of my children, and I had to face all of these issues. And I found that the government was not very helpful. I just made a little bit too much money to get any help for food stamps. I had too much of this and too much of that, so that I didn't have enough of support systems. And I didn't have family around either. So one of the ways that I tried to get myself moving and get myself feeling good about myself was to try not to get my children involved. And so the first one up here is, as long as the water in the bathroom is running, they can't hear me crying. I would get phone calls where he would scream at me and make all sorts of threats, and I had bicycles by the garage that were out in the rain, and he would take me to court. And I had to go to court because my kids' bicycles were in the rain, and he had the pictures to prove it. I mean, it was so insane. And so many young women, like myself, at the time, don't understand what they can do or how they can get help. And it's a very troubling situation, being threatened constantly. At one point, I got very depressed, and I felt like I was falling apart, like my arm was falling off, my head was falling off, my eyes were falling out. And I went for help, and I got a very good counselor, which was very fortunate, and it really helped me become stronger. And this picture over here, is me full of strength. I'm made of iron, and I can do it all. And I'm comfortable, and I'm on my own. So that's what this is about. And so it was a very good thing for me to do. And I got it out without trying not to engage my children in the argument. So I'm very pleased with this. And on occasion, I would meet a woman who was going through a similar situation, and I'd say, come on over, I'm going to make you some tea, and we're going to look at some pictures. And I find that they find that it's very helpful for them to see that there are other people dealing with the same issues. And there are other people there to help and support them. And that's what I tried to do with my bad time. So that's about it.
It's beautiful. And that is true art, ladies and gentlemen. Awesome.
And I have to say, Howie was, I don't know how I would have done it without him. He's my strength.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I'd like to say that coincidentally, Catherine and I actually share this situation with domestic violence in the sense that I'm a licensed social worker and I'm an adult counselor at a domestic violence shelter. So I'm not sure that we actually knew that when we decided to collaborate, but once we decided to do this show together, we realized that we have this shared experience on the other side of the mirror, so to speak.
Yes.
So what I'd like to do is just real quickly, I'm going to come over here and talk about a couple of my pieces, maybe not specifically, but what I decided to do is combine my skill as a visual artist. I started with watercolors when I was 16 and I began backpacking. And they were a painting medium that was very easy to take back into the woods because you're usually near a stream. And as I matured, I didn't want to just make pictures per se. I wanted to somehow combine my passions. My passion for nature, my passion for humans. I also was an artist model for 7 years. I was a mom. I actually had a friend who gave birth in my studio at one point with the nurse midwife. I wanted to combine my passion for social justice. And so now I work as a counselor in a domestic violence shelter. I make imagery, which I hope brings some information into the viewer's consciousness, so maybe it sparks some dialogue. For example, here's a mother with child, but she's just not a mother with child. She's a mother who is a refugee. And refugees, displaced people, often only have what they can carry. So you wrap your child on your back and you carry what you can and you walk. And we're currently in a crisis of migration due to war. Down below, this is boy running in front of latrine. Unfortunately, in a good part of the world, potable water per se, clean drinking water, clean cooking and cleaning water is not something that is easily accessible. I have a whole series around water. A lot of these images are images which I get from mass media, whether it be in print, for example, the New York Times, or on the internet, and they're often just black and white photos with a lot going on. What I do is I simplify it to one symbolic image that's going to capture some of the juxtaposition. Here it is, she's beautiful, the background is tropical, but yet the inner pain that she's experiencing. So we're juxtaposing the beautiful imagery and peacefulness of the environment and her inner turmoil. Here, we have a child running and playing, and all this color and the river going, but yet we understand that having a latrine over a river does not just simply take away the human waste. The waste and bacteria stay, and there's an invisible element for infection. So what I'm trying to do in my artwork is create a forum so people can sort of begin to remember that even though here in the Mid-Hudson Valley, where we have so much preserved land, we don't have war, we're not in civil war, we're not in strife, but poverty, social inequality, environmental degradation, it still exists. So if we have some capacity to help out some of these individuals who are struggling, maybe this will encourage the talk, or encourage giving, or just encourage compassion. So my goal is to use my artwork to be a stepping stone for some type of improvement. So that's what I do. Thank you for listening.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
So who else here would like to talk about their work? We have Ruth. Ruth Pine is here, and she has some paintings. Are you willing now? So Ruth has these paintings are about yet.
Okay. So I prepared a little something to read. Last Truth Out, I did a piece about the pharmaceutical industry and medication and health insurance in this country, and it was pretty bleak. I brainstormed a list of ideas for the 2015 Truth Out. Most of the topics on the list filled me with a sense of dread, anger or rage, sadness or disappointment, frustration. Well, you get the idea. I didn't want to pay artistic homage to those truths at this time. I decided to pick a truth that provided me with an abundance of fantastical feelings of great personal pleasure, sexual pleasure specifically. Sex is my prayer and praise and paintbrush to God, Goddess, divine energy, and the universe. Sex is my religion and my spirituality. Sex is my way of healing myself, you, us, my community, and the planet. T plus Ruth equals truth. Where's Michelle?
Here I am.
Okay, she figured that out. These paintings are all just an experiment, a tantric principle that I live by where everything is an experiment. I will share with you how I created them, since the process was so unusual. The first one is pleasure. This piece. Prioritize pleasure. Investigate pleasure. Invest in pleasure. My pleasure is valuable. My pleasure is art. My pleasure is limitless. Originally, I thought I would collage images of body parts, compromising positions, or make a mandala of erogenous zones. I soon realized that this was not in keeping with my spontaneous, organic nature and my romance with the scintillating somatic pleasure realm. I stopped preparing and stopped imagining what it would look like. In a moment of enlightenment, I chose to focus on sexual pleasure liquids and to create more pleasure while mixing components, all in the name of art. The first piece did not require water or a paintbrush. I don't know of and have not met any other artists who paint with jism or orgasm juice, so I thought I would give it a shot or a squirt. It was fun and silly and surprisingly sexy. It involved proper placement, awareness, safety procedures, and care. It was not so easy to paint with, by the way. Cum is much easier to spread on a human canvas. This sticky finger paint was homemade and cannot be bought at Manny's or Michael's. My tingling fingers moved with wild excitation. That's it, that's it, that's the spot, right there. More, please, yes. The next one is ecstasy, purple one. I am on intimate terms with my own ecstasy. In my sex-positive studio, I laid my mysterious loves on the dining room table instead of on easels. For ecstasy, desire, and lust, I chose to pleasure paint with silicone-based lube, Uber lube, instead of with orgasm juice or water. This provided a terrific sheen on the canvas, but could barely spread the color pigment, and it refused to dry. Since I was using water-soluble crayons, I added drops of water with my fingers to create a batik or a tie-dyed look. Pigment and water was removed. I then wiped off the lube, leaving a dry, lightly moisturized surface. This took time and loving attention to detail. More lube, I kept saying. I need more lube on this. Round and around and around, my naked wet fingers went across the canvas sky, moving slowly around the edges and faster toward the middle. I massaged the power of transformation. I exhaled and inhaled just so, and aroused the beauty from within. How did I get so far out there so quickly? I entered a state of colorful, sacred distant stars and peaceful quietness. I zoomed to a far-off planet of expanded orgasmic consciousness and nothingness and everythingness. Ecstasy is mine, and you can hang it on your wall. Next one is desire. Desire. I am not ashamed of my desires. I wallow in my desires. I am insatiable. Insatiable is my middle name. Back and forth repetitively, making wishing, whirring sounds, Move me upside down, look at me under different lights. Oh, do that again. That worked well. Do you need water to quench your primitive thirst? Should I wipe that off? Towel you dry your drippings? I am in the mood for mermaid blue and seahorse green. I am swirling, swimming, tumbling in the ocean canvas, floating on this wave, watching creatures bob up and down in the distance. This brush is rather large. My poly paintbrushes play together beside you. This dynamic dance of flexible fingertips and pulsating palms bubble me to dive deep. With meditative ease of playful pointed pigment stretching across soft white skin beach, I slide onto a wooden frame blanket bed. If I had more time, I would embellish you, glitter you up with treasures, shower you with sparkles. Yes, I do that thing again. This canvas is juicy with desire and endlessly wet. And my last one. So lust. Ravish me. Lust is exalted. I serve my lust. Raise the lights brighter. I want to expose your brilliant marks and embrace your vulnerable spaces. The brush strokes will feel best gliding up and down. Hold it. Look at it. I hear you. The canvas tastes the paints. Up and down, keep rubbing it. Harder, gentler, no harder, until that underground moan of color pops through and those crackling specks of rainbow fly out of crevices and seep into entrances and ooze just into the right spot. Pulsating hands and paintbrush vibrations push against canvas flesh, not ripping it, rather heating it up, birthing fire from friction. If I weren't so hungry, I would turn on your texture, heat your glue in ways I haven't done before. Still, I will seduce your presence, fierce bursts of stopping and starting. Am I withholding? Do I have more to add? Is there another eruption in this piece of never to be in the same place again? This art is not a seizure, not a convulsion. It is a gyration, a neurogenic tremor. Water has ceased to put out this lusty, lewd, volcanic fire spin.
Very good.
If you would like to try your hand at using lube as a medium for painting, this is the lube that I used. Of course, there are water-soluble lubes that will work completely different. I might try that next time. You can get this online. It's not really available in stores. And if you're looking for, jism, cum, orgasm juice, you'll have to supply that on your own time.
Or find a friend.
Yeah.
What you do in your studio is your own business.
What you do in your studio stays in your studio.
Well, Ruth, I think by great sex, we're speechless. So, if we could ask the folks here to kind of move aside.
Oh, excuse me, sir.
Just a little short introduction about my background. I'm a visual artist. I studied art in Delhi College of Art, India, and had the opportunity as a student to travel almost all over India with my brushes and my paint boxes and our paper and pencil and all that you need as an artist. And it was an amazing experience. It was quite a few years back now. But during those travels, when in Indian railway stations, for example, because we went by train or we would sometimes have to use buses or whatever to reach very remote places. But for example, at railway stations, whenever we stopped there, those days you could get tea, the people would be running around and they'll say tea, 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 because the stops would be short. You would want to have a hot cup of tea. But these were not served in cups. They were served in earthenware pots. And that left such a mark on me even when I was 15, 16 years old, that it was like amazing to see that we would drink it. Nobody had touched it. It was a pure earthenware thing that the villagers had made. Hot cup of tea, stayed hot in it. And after we had drunk, we'd toss it out, and it would be part of nature again. Similarly, we went to southern India, and there too, I remember sitting. We would be lined up, there would be other students and other professors, and everybody would sit on the floor, of course, cross legs, and they would give us food. The food was not served in a plate or any plastic container or anything. It would be served on, sort of, I would say a plate, but made out of leaves. So either it was a plantain leaf that had been washed clean, or it would be these big, we call them people trees. They have really, really large leaves like that, heart-shaped leaves, and they would put, like, not even sew them together, but just with little sticks, they would like join them together, and that would be like a platter. And again, back again to nature, and the recycling would go on, and we would not have to worry about styrofoams or plastics or whatever you have it. And that did leave a big impression on my mind, because when I came to the West, also I was very, very young, and I came with my husband here, and it was a totally different world. A world that was also a consumer world, but disregard about what we were using here. We were throwing away so much. I mean, sometimes I would get literally cramps in my stomach when I would see my friends toss away good food. Now, it's too much. We don't want to eat it, so out it goes. I mean, it used to be so much that I would say, oh my God, the same food could be so well used in that time. India was a third world country, but now, of course, it's one of the developed countries, and way ahead in industrialization too, as one would say. But when you compare the places, and I'm now sorry to see that India is changing too. We are also having the introduction of styrofoam plastic, but not to the same extent as here. And recently when I was in India, another thing that impressed me was that they will not give you plastic bags. If you go to any store, they will either you bring your own bag, or they'll have paper bags, or some of the stores where they sell really nice clothes, they will have beautiful cotton bags. So they are like reusable. So they'll pack your sari or your whatever in these beautiful bags. So at least there like here also, I'm not saying they're not trying, they're all trying now everywhere to do a lot of recycling. So these paintings I made in the 80s, because that was when I was really struck by the effect of industrialization on humans. And so all of these paintings, the 5 here and the one over there, are from that period. I think a painting should speak for itself. So what I would like to do is that instead of giving my interpretation, I would like you all to tell me what you think about the work. For example, let's just talk about this painting, So, and I've tried to use very, very stark colors for the contrast, because keep in mind the topic was in human beings in an industrialized world. So that is the basic background. So please come up with your own feelings, what you feel when you see them.
When I look at that painting, I see barrenness. Typically when I think of nature, I think of opulence and variety and dappled light. But when I look at that painting, it seems like everything's been denuded, and the resources are gone, and all we have left is just the structure, which does not look like it has the capacity to regenerate. And that's very, it's almost like a sci-fi image.
Yeah, and you're quite right, because the background up there, that is all the pollution and all the background up on top, and that's where the swirls and the grays and the blacks that are used there. And these are, yes, I'm trying to show the barrenness in case we do not do something. This could be our future, which I don't think we really are looking forward to, none of us. And human beings are also represented merely as robotic figures now, no longer those beautiful sensual, sexual imagery is there anymore, but like these past figures with nothing, like not a heart also. You can feel almost the hardness in that human representation. And here again, this is like the, and my husband had been for years been working with forest regeneration and trying to, maybe he could tell you a little better, but to clone forests and all, because the forests there was so much at that time, especially in Europe, because of the pollution. We were losing a lot of forests at that time.
Where was that?
In Germany and around Germany, because they were using a lot of coal. Am I right, Russ? They were using a lot of coal during this period for industrialization. And so that had affected, and of course the pollution from the car exhaust and all, so they were all affecting the forest, and a lot of it was lost at that time. And so this is again a representing how, just all our forests are being affected by this industrialization without thinking of the consequences. And again, the human is like gold. Here, gold for me represents materialism. Gold, everything that's glittering, shining, lovely, but it can be also pure. Gold is one of the purest metals. Yet in this particular instance, I have used gold more with the idea of materialism in society and us forgetting, like even very recently, now for example, Volkswagen, having put those in their cars so that the pollution is not measured the right way. For example, is a very recent example of our materialistic society without thinking of the consequences and literally cheating the normal public, and which is sad. And here, this painting is like, nowadays there's been so much talk about artificial intelligence and a lot about robots being made, and they will take over a lot of things that normally we have been doing all these years. And actually, Ruth, very recently I read there's a robot that they are working on, you must have read it too, that will do the same thing. Humans are not needed for that, right? Anyway, so, and then having read 1984, also the novel, it just sort of hit me that we are just trying to make everybody like uniform. And actually, I work with special needs kids also, and sometimes I just sort of sometimes like feel a little uncomfortable when for everything we are telling them, do this, say this. It's like almost, sometimes I think maybe sometimes we should leave them alone and let them be a little bit of what they are. Why are we trying to conform everybody in a certain mold that we expect that in society? Why? That sometimes baffles me. And like I said, I work with 4 to 5 year olds, so it just sometimes I feel, let's leave them alone. At times it's better. So,
at the 9/11 speech that Pope Francis did yesterday, he talked specifically about not being uniform, and when you said that, and I was thinking of that, the same over and over again, and what he speaks about is like diversity, and that's what he said. Do not be uniform, be diverse. That's where all this problem comes from. And it's just like, even the trees, because I didn't have my glasses on, you've got that uniform of like they're chopping them, and this too. And what it is, you just get lost in the machine of it and the greed of it. And the gold is the greed.
Yeah, that's right. And the same thing, how nature is like almost draped in a black garment or something, but I, of course, wanted to show those flowers. So, but then again, our industrialization up on top, sort of crushing it in a way that it's so, and the nature is so delicate that we really do have to take care of it. And my last work was over there, and there again, I have the flowers, very, very delicate there, and this is like, the atomic symbol for me, It is both, interestingly, I find in India we call it the Shiva Linga. So Shiva Linga is a symbol for Shiva, and he is, I'm sure many of you have seen this image with the dancing Shiva, so he's standing with the forearms and his leg up like that. So the Shiva Linga can be both destructive as well as regenerative, but here I have taken it as its destruction form because it's an atomic missile, and this is all, again, the nature, which is very delicate and we have to take care of. Any questions? Be happy to answer.
I like that one particularly because like the arms folded. It's kind of like not my problem. So that's like that's what I got out of the trees in the background because what you're describing is really cool.
I noticed.
This one is particularly beautiful. It sounds like it has to burn on top.
I appreciated all the thought that has gone into what you've created. Thanks for explaining.
Thank you.
I noticed 4 out of the 6 portraits that you have painted, these are from the 80s, that 4 out of the 6 have the machine type images in them, and the deforestation in them, which was pretty much the brand for the 80s and 90s and continues today. So that is a large part of your painting state of mind. And that's a beautiful thing. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other artists here this evening who would like to speak about their work?
Oh, I'll speak. How are you all walking up? Let me see. Do I have anything down here? No. Okay. Yeah. Come on up here.
Bye.
That's one.
Okay. Come closer.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
This is, there are a couple of pieces I have here, and this one kind of is like a little installation, and it's Pope Francis, who I guess everybody's heard has been in town, and
Yeah, I saw him at the water street.
yeah, he might be here. Well, actually, he's right here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad here he is, just to say hello to you all. Hello, you're doing a good job. I went to see him yesterday. Then I got this, and I got this shirt. I've been following him before, he was famous, or, he was just any old pope. And just that he's been following the road of Jesus. And I heard him talk in Congress, and he's speaking truth to power, and holding no bars, just letting it all out. And I've never seen anything like that in my life. He got Boehner to resign. maybe he'll get Cheney to resign. But what he's doing is following the path of Jesus. And I never knew in my whole life, except when I was really little, and I really believed that I could ever, I didn't think I could even hope for any moral guidance or whatever, because it's been so, what's it called? Everything's been so bought and sold, and it's been so corrupt. And but Pope Francis is just kind of a conduit for this lady, because he prays every day for 3 hours, and she is the untier of knots. So he hands her the knots, and there are a lot of knots. The knots, well, we all have our personal knots, the sins we've done, how bad we, whatever the harm we've done to others or whatever, and then the knot of war, and the knot of homelessness, and the knot of what he's talking, the poor. And he hands these knots to her, and this is the Virgin, Blessed Virgen, untier of knots, and she's untying them. And so he prays for 3 hours. She gives him his marching orders, and then he goes out and says all the wonderful things. So he's really kind of like a conduit for her. And I just wanted to share what he said in Congress was, he said that, I'm paraphrasing, that this is the arms sale, the sale of arms is got to stop. And he said that the blood of the innocent is drenched by the sale of arms. He said about the immigrants. He said the immigrants are, he goes, oh, by the way, I'm an immigrant. And if you look back, you're all immigrants too. And so that was wonderful. He's just kind of telling it like it is. And, somebody said those lousy politicians will never listen to him. But the thing is, the world is listening, and he's really coming up with a new world, or an old world, just people living together and loving each other and doing the right thing. So anyway, he gives me hope, and I have hope in everybody else too, and so this is kind of like the installation of that, and he's got his Crocs on because he's a green Pope.
Is he that short? Is he really that short?
Well, he shrunk. No. What, Catherine? They're my Crocs. They're on the Pope. He ran out of shoes. You know how he goes. And then this is an installation, kind of like an installation. Yeah, it is. Catherine helped me with it actually, and it just shows something about marijuana and pot and all the different uses for it that has been it's just coming out now. It's just almost reaching the tipping point. All of medicine, and there's a little bit, well, this is empty medicine, but there's a couple of products, pot products here, and all the things that it was used for, like clothing and medicine, for thousands of years. Rope. What else? Huh? Sails. What?
Clothing.
Huh? Clothing. Right, and also that you could use it, the oil of it, for instead of fossil fuels.
Yeah, paper
so
products.
What?
Paper products.
Yeah. Well, the reason that it was made illegal was because of the paper industries and the drug industries and the DuPont, the chemical industries.
Well, it also was done in 1937 because this guy named Unframed, who was in charge of the drug administration, went illegal because he thought it was used by the Mexicans as a means of control, and he wanted to make that discriminatory against Mexicans and blacks.
Exactly.
And people of color.
Exactly. So they did, and they made it like it was Hearst, who ran the paper industry. He was the one that put the articles out about reefer madness and stuff. And this is a simple, not simple piece, but a piece of that's kind of enduring because it's the Iraq War. I did it during the Iraq War, but it just, it serves for today, unfortunately. And I'd like to not ever put it up again, but it's one of my favorite pieces because I don't know, it just shows the pain, and yet there's a real delicacy, and it's like looking into like what's gonna be, what's, you know, what, look at what is and look what could be, kind of thing. So that's most of them, and then there's one over here, and this has been in a show last year, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but this is, Pam Krinsky helped me, and she did, she's not here, but this is just Black Lives Matter, and all what's been going on this whole, you know, past year, and this is, and people standing up for themselves too. Like so many people are out in the street, and so many people, it's like really finally taking notice, and people are, you know, there's a shift coming. And this is Martin Luther King, who yesterday Pope Francis talked about too as one of the, you know, the most important thinkers and social activists in America ever. And he, when I was thinking Black Lives Matter, his life mattered, and yet he's never even, nobody even knows that he was killed by the government. They know, but it's purposely pushed away. So I figured I'm just going to keep passing these on and passing them on, and until, you know, and people's consciousness will slowly be raised. Because, but the thing is, this is really quickly being raised too. So, and people are taking notice, and, well, you know, I was hoping Odell would come, who's really, you know, he knows all about it and everything. Or Brian, well, anyway, so we'll keep on passing that news along, that he was, and, you know, this guy did not kill him. James Earl Ray didn't kill him. The government killed him, and all the parts of the government, and there's a 700-page testament about it.
So Michelle is an amazing force here, and for many, many years, probably decades, of raising awareness around issues that are not covered by the mainstream media. And Michelle has been a sustainer of the arts in New Paltz and part of the Unframed Gallery. She is, and Brian is, or are the people who make this happen. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's also some artists who were not able to be here for various reasons. We have Nestor's piece over here, which is the last day that the Bulls were allowed to, how would you say?
Barcelona, I think it's the day
bullfighting was banned.
The day bullfighting was banned
in Barcelona.
The day bullfighting was banned in Barcelona. Nestor is an amazing muralist. Can you say his full name, Michelle?
Nestor Mata
Yeah.
He's Portuguese.
Obviously, we're not of Spanish heritage,
Yeah.
but hopefully at some future date, Nestor may be able to come before the camera and speak eloquently about his painting. This is his style. He does use acrylic in squeeze bottles, and that is how, also there's words in here, probably in his native language, that explain all about this. And I believe as a viewer, I'm reading a little bit about the sexuality and the violence and the excitement that kept this as a national pastime.
Yes.
But we do know that it took advantage of the animal, and there were some violent consequences. We also have another artist who is not able to be here today, Meadow. This is her work. What she's done is taken the American icon of the pinup as a object of sexuality. Not this sexuality that Ruth Pine so eloquently spoke about in terms of experiencing it and owning it, but objectifying and being an other. And so we hope that Meadow is able to discuss all of this. It's Mr. Perfect, Daddy's Love, I'm Okay, The Gift, and Unconditional Love. And it really talks about the disconnect between the image and the experience of relationship.
Wow.
So we have gone from war, the Pope, domestic violence, environmental degradation. We actually have some pieces here about the indigenous experience, the anonymous artists. And this is my piece up top. Again, it's the needy reaching out for help. Can you help me? And then instead of getting help, you're getting the gun pointed at you. We saw that after Katrina, when people went on the bridge and they tried to cross away into something and they were turned back by gunpowder. We see that now in the situation with displaced people where they are trying to access support and they're being told the border is closed. So the needy and the greedy, social inequality. So this whole exhibit keeps coming back to that. How do people balance needs and wants? Some people have wants satiated. It's bizarre. They have so much. And other people, all they want is clean water, a safe place to sleep, education, safety. So looking at all of the stories and getting the truth out, that's what this show is about. Thank you for coming here tonight. So appreciate that.
This has been an Unframed Art Gallery event. This has been a Happenings Around the Hudson presentation. You have a good evening.